morning, Lionhearts. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are all of you doing today? I hope you said well. We are going to start off our day right by taking Ja out to go play, and then Amy's on our way over, and we are going to head over to Forest Lawn, Glendale. We haven't been there in quite a while. This is going to be a pretty great grave that we're going to see today. This was a Russian actress who started one of the most storied places in Hollywood. It's one of those places that has gone down in time with numerous stories, and we'll talk about that today. So, Daze with Jordan the Lion, you all, Amy and Ja, it begins right now. Well, they haven't necessarily opened the gyms, but everybody opened it for themselves, so they're open now, I guess. See that squirrel on the tree over there? Not in the mood to chase any squirrels yet? Flower garden over here is looking pretty good. I just got a text message that Robert's ready to wrestle, so we're gonna go do that now. Hard to keep up with them. Well, unfortunately, Amy couldn't make it out for this one after all, so we'll do this without her. But Cherry Laverne, this Patreon sunglass vlog is going to be for you. I hope you enjoy it. See the line outside the liquor store during the lockdown. Pretty busy day over here at Forest Lawn. Take a look at that. Lots of people coming and going. We're looking for the Whispering Pines section today. I've never been to Nazimova's grave, so don't know how easy or hard it will be. I think Whispering Pine's right over this hill. Now over in this direction is the Great Mausoleum, and this is the Whispering Pines section. I believe that she is somewhere over in here. So I'm gonna walk us over in this direction. The Great Mausoleum that I pointed out over there is where Michael Jackson, Clark Gable, W.C. Fields, Jean Harlow, people like that, Elizabeth Taylor, they're all buried in there, or entombed. This is not an easy one to find at all. I know I have to be close, but I have looked and looked and looked for about 20 or 30 minutes now, and I still cannot find her, but it's gotta be right over here. I may complain, but that is one of my favorite things about doing this, is kind of the thrill of the hunt. Spending time out here looking and finding it eventually. Okay, I finally found her. If you're looking for her, look for this big tree right here. Here she is. The woman who made her name as Nazimova. She went by ALLA Nazimova. That wasn't her real name. She just went by Nazimova. You can see it says, voice of world's conscience, immaculate beyond our concept. Christ is thy name, teach us. For shun thy ways of greed and prejudice and strife, to earn our bread, to share our bread, to heed, to follow thee forever. Amen. A.N. So ALLA Nazimova was actually born in Russia, and her original birth name was Maryam Ides Adelaida Yakovlevna Leventon. And she ended up changing her name professionally once she became an actress to ALLA, based off of that Adelaida. Now, she grew up in kind of a crazy household. The parents got divorced, and she got shuffled around to different relatives and then foster care, but eventually got enrolled in acting classes when she was a teenager, showed a lot of promise, and then Konstantin Stanislavski, the man who was famous for creating the method, the idea of acting where you become the character completely. You take on all the traits, the feelings, the beliefs, all the emotions, everything that the character should feel, you become that. She got to study with him and became so great that she ended up becoming one of the most sought after stage actresses in all of Moscow and St. Petersburg. And then she started traveling around all of Europe, made a great name for herself, and then a Broadway producer in 1905 saw her and offered her a contract. So she came to New York with her partner, Paul, and they opened up a Russian school, like a Russian theater that was also partially school, and it didn't do well. So Paul took off and went back to Russia, and ALLA stayed here and worked on the theater and became, within a 10-year span, one of the greatest theater actresses there was. Saying a lot considering that not only was English not her first language, but she really wasn't that great at speaking at all. She didn't understand it very well. She didn't know the language. She just learned the dialogue and was able to express it. And then one of the plays that she made famous, Selznick, decided to turn into a movie, and they paid her $1,000 a week to take her play into being a movie. It was so profitable that Metro, the predecessor to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, decided to offer her a contract and ask ALLA to move herself out to Hollywood. Now in those days, a lot of actresses really saw the theater as the true art, and ALLA saw herself as a true artist. However, she didn't mind going to movies. In fact, she said that that was the true way to be an artist, because if you were on theater, your art couldn't be preserved. So that was her big motivation to come accept this offer at Metro. And the money wasn't bad either, because she was offered $13,000 a week, which by today's standards was over $250,000 a week to start making movies. And her movies, from the time that she came in 1916 onward, for the next 5 years, were all a very big hit. She was a household name and one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Now Nazimova was such a big actress that she really could do anything she wanted, except in 1899 she had been married, and when she came over to the US, she was keeping that a secret and entered into a lavender marriage with another man named Charles. And they kept that going from 1912 until 1925. She secretly ended up divorcing her first husband while she was supposedly, to her fans, married to Charles. And then after she got her divorce, Charles went out and married a young 23-year-old, and when he was filling out the marriage paperwork, the marriage license, he put that he was single, and this got out and everyone found out that their marriage had been a sham all along, and it really hurt her career. Now, one of the reasons that she was doing that was because she was the woman who was credited as coining the phrase the sewing circle. See, she was, even though her fans and many people believe that she was married to Charles, she wasn't, and she was leading a double life because she was, to her friends, an open lesbian, and was very supportive of having women and like lesbians and bisexual women over to her house and to throw parties. And she ended up leasing what would become known as the Garden of Allah. It was a mansion on Sunset Boulevard and was known for throwing these massive lavish parties there. And it was just kind of known as a kind of a free haven. And she ended up buying that property a year after she started staying there, and she saw her career doing so well that she thought, well, I should invest my own money into some of my movies. And she did that in a couple of movies, one of which being Oscar Wilde's Salome. And both of the movies that she invested her money in were both critically flops, but they were also financial flops. And so she decided then that she wasn't going to invest her money anymore. She really wasn't drawing at the box office now that her secret was out, and she decided to turn the mansion into a hotel. that became the Garden of Allah. She built 28 cottages on the property and started having people stay there, and that became known as a big party place. If you were a degenerate, a partier, a drinker, a philanderer, that was the place to be. They said that F. Scott Fitzgerald lived there when he was in town writing for MGM. Jackie Gleason lived there. It was really kind of a who's who place, and everybody knew the party was on. But she eventually had lost so much money that she decided to sell the property, move to New York, and continue in the theater. She did that for a few years because once the talking pictures came out, she wasn't really that sought after. She had made her name mostly in silence. And so she did the Broadway stuff for a while and then decided to come back to Hollywood in the early 40s. And luckily, she did that because she ended up being in a couple of movies, and those are really the only way that her acting has been preserved, because she made movies in 1941 and 42. The stuff that she made in the silent pictures, though she in theory was right, she said that if you wanted to be remembered you had to do it in movies because theater wouldn't last. Unfortunately, what they filmed those movies on in the silent era and how they stored them, a lot of them just disintegrated and there's nothing left of them. So fortunately, a lot of her history, a lot of what she was famous for, is now lost. But she ended up moving back to Hollywood to do those movies and moved back into the Garden of Allah and lived out her days there. Now, it was said that she had, through most of her life, a steady girlfriend, and right next to her there's a plot open, and I think that supposedly that's who was supposed to be buried next to her. But as you can see, it's still an open plot. Now, ALLA Nazimova was a great friend of Rudolph Valentino, and there had long been a rumor, and I won't say that I believe it or anything, I'll just say there had been a rumor that Valentino had entered into lavender marriages as well, and ALLA Nazimova was actually said to have been the person who helped both of his wives' career. He married a woman named Jean Acker that lasted for mere days. Actually, it might have only been through the night, and then they filed for divorce the next day. And then Natasha Rambova, who started out doing some acting but eventually became a well-known art director and set designer, and Nazimova helped her career quite a bit, but it was never said whether there was anything between them romantically or anything. It was just pointed out quite often that she had helped their careers. Gleska Marshall was Nazimova's partner from 1929 till her death in 1945, so that's probably who was going to be buried next to her in one of these plots. Said that she had plots 3 and 4. ALLA Nazimova died here in Los Angeles of coronary thrombosis in 1945 at the young age of 66 years old. The great story to hear of her rise from Russia, and she did become an American citizen in the late 20s. Really cool to hear about her rise, but it's just crazy to think of how much money she made at one time, and then to think that she would have to turn her home into a hotel just to try and keep it going, and then just not knowing the business of running a hotel, it just, you know, it just turned into a bad idea. Rest in peace, Nazimova. And I guess that's a common thing for Russian actresses to be, on their headstone it say Madam. As I was walking around just exploring, I saw this was a kind of a unique name, Lucy Love. Alright, I think we're gonna head out of here. But yeah, right here in this part is where Michael Jackson's buried, and the others are all buried over here that I mentioned earlier. Alright, my friends, we're gonna call it a night. Cherry Laverne, or Cherry Laverne, I hope you enjoyed your Patreon sunglass vlog. Wanted to thank RFG and Diana Lawhorn for becoming my newest Patreons. And I mentioned to you that she got her professional name, ALLA, from Adelaida, part of her middle name. The last part, Nazimova, that came from Children of the Street, a Russian novel that she loved when she was a little girl. So there you have it. A little bit about Some silent movie history that you may not have known before, or if you've ever heard of the Garden of ALLA, now you know where that came from. Have a great night. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.